Hello and welcome. In this video from the Office of Accessibility Services, we're going to go over extended deadline accommodations and help you to understand some of the policies, procedures, and expectations for this particular kind of accommodation. Because many instructors might be familiar with extended testing time, but what does this idea of extended deadlines entail and how can it be implemented fairly and appropriately? Many instructors have received or seen extended testing time accommodations where a student needs a little bit of extra time for a test or a quiz. Extended deadline accommodations are different and perhaps in that way a little bit less common. So this is an accommodation that's intended for a student that has chronic, episodic, and unpredictable health concerns. For example, let's take a student that maybe has epilepsy or a seizure disorder. This student will experience disability-related disruptions or episodes that can be severe, and it may impact their ability to turn in work on the expected due date. In order to be eligible for this type of accommodation, a student has to have a documented disability that is unpredictable and occasionally severe, disrupting their life and therefore their ability to do work and submit it in a timely fashion. If a student has this accommodation approved, it'll be documented through our Office of Accessibility Services and listed specifically in the student's letter of accommodation as an extended deadline accommodation. When the Office of Accessibility Services sends the letter of accommodation documenting the student's need for extended deadlines, we also send a flex planning form. So this is a digital form that asks specific questions about assessment types that are utilized in the course, what the student should do if they experience a disability-related flare-up, how they can communicate with you, and also what types of assignments might qualify for this extension of deadlines. It's worth noting that perhaps not all types of assignments can be eligible for extended deadlines. For example, lab practicals in a nursing setting may need to be done on a specific date because the student needs access to the setting and access to specialized equipment. So it's really important to answer the flex planning form as honestly as possible and to create clear expectations around turning in assignments and what might be eligible for an extension, just so that student and instructor and our Office of Accessibility Services are all working in complement and are all on the same page. With that said, please reach out to the Office of Accessibility Services if you have questions. Once our office receives the completed flex planning form, we will share it both with the student and the instructor in the same email thread as the initial letter of accommodation so that all of those expectations are clarified and outlined as specifically as possible. When meeting with students who qualify for extended deadlines, the Office of Accessibility Services outline some specific expectations for the student as well because they are an important partner in their learning. And so we do encourage these students to speak with each of their instructors at the start of each semester to review the completed flex accommodation plan and to clarify what kinds of assignments will qualify for extensions and what kinds of assignments might not. It's worth noting that we do not recommend that assignments that are long-term. So assignments where a student has weeks or even potentially a month to complete the assignment, generally this would not be the type of assignment where an extended deadline is necessary or even appropriate. We also encourage students to notify the instructor as soon as possible when a flare-up occurs or an extension is needed. These kinds of extensions hopefully will only ever apply intermittently, once, twice, maybe 3 times a semester, not repeatedly or every week. And therefore, it's important for students to reach out to advocate for their needs when they are experiencing those types of flare-ups. The student may not be able to predict the onset of a flare-up, as is the case with a seizure disorder. They might be able to identify certain risk factors that make that kind of event more likely, but it may catch them off guard and derail them temporarily in their life. So we do tell students within 24 hours of the episode, they should reach out to the instructor to express their needs. If you do receive a letter of accommodation for a student who needs extended deadlines in your course or courses, we do ask that when filling out the flex plan, you create clear, actionable expectations, be specific and honest in your reflection on what types of assignments might qualify for an extension and what types of assignments where this type of accommodation would interfere with the academic rigor or the nature and intention of the assessment in question. You want to follow that flex plan and defer to it in cases where the student experiences an episode that prevents them from turning in their assignment on time. As always, we respect your ability to exercise professional discretion. You know your course best. You know what students need to be able to do and demonstrate in order to be successful in that course. We also encourage you to apply compassion where necessary and as needed. And then if you do encounter any challenges or concerns as you are navigating the semester with your student, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office. We're always happy to support you and clarify what we can. Just as with all of our students with disabilities who have extended deadline accommodations should still be meeting the outcomes and learning objectives of a course. They are still responsible for doing the work and doing quality work. Therefore, it should not be assumed that an extended deadline accommodation applies to all assignments. It doesn't necessarily afford the student the right to an incomplete or time beyond the scope of the regular semester to do work. It shouldn't result in chronic, excessive, or missing work, and shouldn't be applied to situations where the student has to turn in work late for a reason unrelated to their disability, such as they overslept, they forgot to write down a due date in their calendar. Things like that would not necessarily be covered and shouldn't be covered. And that student should still be held accountable, same as any other student in your course. And it's also worth noting that how this accommodation is implemented will look different course to course depending on the type of coursework that the student is expected to engage in. And therefore, this type of accommodation may not apply to a clinical and experiential based course or a course where a student is participating in a lab. If a student feels that they have not had their accommodations met, or they feel that they have been unfairly penalized as a result of their disability or the accommodation approved by OAS, they should reach out to our office immediately. And if a faculty member in turn feels that excessive absences, excessive missing work, a particular type of accommodation jeopardizes the integrity of a course, they too should reach out to OAS so that we can discuss a more appropriate way of supporting the student and come to some kind of resolution. In some cases where students have a disability that interferes significantly with their ability to complete coursework or to attend class, there are some other options that may be more appropriate than this type of accommodation. And those might include an incomplete for the semester, depending on the nature of the challenges that they're facing, or withdrawal from a course. As always, the Office of Accessibility Services is here to support you and to answer the questions that you have as you work to support your students and to better their learning. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us at 815-740-3204 or our email oas@stfrancis.edu. Thank you, and we hope you have a wonderful semester.